I was standing outside our stateroom door on deck 7, holding 2 Mai Tais from the pool bar, when I heard my husband's laugh. Not his polite social laugh, the real one, the one he used to say for me back when we were young. The door was cracked open just an inch. I'd left it that way when I went to get drinks, thinking he'd be in the shower. We were on a 10-day Caribbean cruise to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary. Our daughter Lauren had insisted on booking it for us, said we needed time to reconnect after my retirement from teaching. She had no idea how right she was. I should have knocked, I should have called out, but something in the tone of that laugh made me freeze. Through the gap, I could see into the mirror mounted on the opposite wall. The reflection showed everything. My husband, Mitchell, was sitting on our bed. Next to him was Rosalie, my best friend of 32 years. Rosalie, who'd been my maid of honor. Rosalie, whose kids I'd helped raise when her husband died. Rosalie, who was supposed to be in the stateroom 3 doors down. They weren't just talking. Mitchell's hand was on her knee. She was leaning into him, her head on his shoulder, and he was showing her something on his phone. Both of them laughing like teenagers. I stepped back from the door, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. The Mai Tais nearly slipped from my hands. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to breathe quietly, trying to think. 40 years. We'd been married for 40 years. I'd put him through law school while working 2 jobs. I'd raised our 3 children mostly alone while he built his practice. I'd been patient through the long hours, the missed birthdays, the forgotten anniversaries. And now, at 62 years old, I was standing in a cruise ship hallway spying on my own husband with my best friend. I heard Rosalie's voice, soft and intimate. "We should tell her soon, Mitchell. I hate sneaking around like this." "I know. After the cruise, I promise. I just want these 10 days first. Is that selfish?" "Maybe a little," Rosalie said, and they both laughed again. I backed away from the door, my mind racing. They were planning to tell me after the cruise, after they'd enjoyed 10 days of paradise, presumably sneaking around behind my back the entire time. My first instinct was to burst through that door, to scream, to throw the drinks at them, to make a scene that the entire ship would hear. But something stopped me. Maybe it was all those years as a high school principal learning to stay calm during a crisis. Maybe it was pure shock. Or maybe it was something deeper, something harder. I walked to the railing and looked out at the ocean. We were 2 days into the cruise, 8 days left. 8 days where they thought they were getting away with it. 8 days where I could be the fool, or I could be something else entirely. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. Then I walked back to the door, held the phone up to the crack, and started recording. 30 seconds, that's all I needed. Mitchell's face clearly visible, Rosalie's face clearly visible, their intimate body language, the conversation I'd overheard still fresh in my mind. I stopped recording, slipped my phone into my pocket, and dumped both Mai Tais into a nearby trash can. Then I took a breath, fixed my face into a smile, and opened the door with my keycard, calling out cheerfully, "Mitchell, the pool bar was packed. I couldn't get the drinks after all. Oh, Rosalie, I didn't know you were here." They sprang apart like guilty teenagers. Mitchell's face went red. Rosalie jumped up, smoothing her sundress nervously. "I was just, borrowing some sunscreen," Rosalie stammered, holding up a bottle from our bathroom counter. "I forgot mine." "Of course," I said, my smile never wavering. "Take it, we have plenty." The rest of that day was torture. We had dinner at the captain's table with Rosalie and 2 other couples from our Texas hometown. I watched my husband and my best friend carefully avoid looking at each other. I watched them overcompensate, Mitchell being extra attentive to me, Rosalie talking too loudly about her upcoming visit to her son in Colorado, and I watched myself as if from outside my body, laughing at jokes, complimenting Rosalie's dress, holding Mitchell's hand, playing the part of the happy wife celebrating 40 years of marriage. That night, after Mitchell fell asleep, I sat in the bathroom with my phone and started gathering evidence. I went through our bank statements online, I checked our credit cards, and there it was. Patterns I'd been too trusting to notice before. Weekend trips to Dallas, where he claimed he was meeting clients. Hotel charges for 2 people. Dinner receipts from romantic restaurants going back 6 months, then a year, then 18 months. This wasn't new. This wasn't a cruise ship fling. This had been going on for a long time. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through more records. Then I found something else. Transfers from our joint account to an account I didn't recognize. Not huge amounts, $500 here, $1,000 there, but regular, consistent, adding up to nearly $40,000 over the past 2 years. I opened a new browser window and traced the account number. It took some digging, but I found it. A joint account, Mitchell's name and Rosalie's name together. They weren't just having an affair, they were building a life together. With my money. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break things. I wanted to wake Mitchell up and demand answers. But I didn't, because something had crystallized in my mind. They wanted to wait until after the cruise to tell me. They wanted these 10 perfect days first. Fine, let them have their 10 days, but they wouldn't be the only ones with a plan. The next morning, I was bright and cheerful at breakfast. I suggested we all spend the day together at the next port, Cozumel. Mitchell looked uncomfortable, but Rosalie agreed enthusiastically. Too enthusiastically, overcompensating. While they were at the buffet line, I texted our daughter Lauren. "Honey, can you FaceTime me tonight at 8 p.m. ship time? Nothing urgent, just want to show you the views." She responded immediately. "Sure, Mom, everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I typed back. "Just miss you." That afternoon in Cozumel, I planed the perfect tourist. I took hundreds of photos, group shots, candid moments, Mitchell and Rosalie carefully avoiding standing too close together, me smiling in every single one, creating a record of our happy anniversary vacation. I also did something else. I hired a local investigator I found through Google, met him at a cafe while Mitchell and Rosalie were shopping. I paid him $200 cash to do a background check on both of them, looking for any additional accounts, properties, or assets I didn't know about. He promised results by email within 3 days. When we got back to the ship, I suggested we all have dinner together again, and the next night, and the night after that, I watched Mitchell grow increasingly tense. I watched Rosalie start to make excuses, saying she needed alone time, needed to rest, but I insisted. After all, we were best friends. Why wouldn't we spend time together? By day 5, Mitchell pulled me aside. "Honey, don't you think we should have some time, just the 2 of us? This is our anniversary trip." "You're right," I said, touching his face tenderly. "I just thought since Rosalie's here alone and she's been such a good friend all these years," I let the sentence hang. He looked guilty. Good. That night was the formal captain's dinner. Everyone dressed up. I wore the silver gown I'd bought specifically for this cruise, the one that had cost more than I'd ever spent on a dress in my life. I'd lost 15 pounds for this trip. I looked good, and I knew it. Mitchell couldn't take his eyes off me. For a moment, I saw something in his face. Regret, maybe, or was it just guilt? Rosalie wore red. She looked beautiful, too. She'd always been the pretty one in our friendship, the one men noticed first. I'd never minded, or at least I told myself I didn't mind. During dinner, I stood up to give a toast. I told everyone I wanted to say a few words about our 40 years together. Mitchell looked nervous, but he was trapped. Everyone was watching. 40 years ago, I began, my voice steady, I married my college sweetheart. I was 22 years old. I thought I knew everything about love, about commitment, about partnership. I paused, looking around the table. I was so naive. Mitchell shifted uncomfortably. I continued. Over these 40 years, I've learned that marriage isn't about the big romantic gestures. It's about the small, daily choices we make. It's about honesty, trust, Transparency. I looked directly at Mitchell, then at Rosalie. It's about knowing who you can count on when everything falls apart. I raised my glass. To the next chapter, whatever that may bring. Everyone clinked glasses, murmuring agreement. Mitchell's hand was shaking as he drank. On day 7, the investigator's email arrived. It was worse than I'd thought. The joint account with Rosalie was just the beginning. Mitchell had also taken out a home equity line of credit on our house without telling me, $200,000, supposedly for business investments. But according to the investigator's report, that money had gone to purchase a condo in Rosalie's name in Scottsdale, Arizona, where her son lived, where they were apparently planning to relocate. They'd been planning this for years, while I was teaching teenagers about integrity and making a difference, while I was planning our retirement together, while I was being the loyal wife and the devoted friend. They were planning their future without me, with my money. I sat on the deck that evening, watching the sunset, and made my decision. I wouldn't confront them on the ship. I wouldn't give them the chance to spin a story or control the narrative. I would wait until we got home, until we were in front of everyone who mattered. Because in 2 weeks, we were hosting a 40th anniversary party. Our children were coming, Mitchell's partners from the law firm, my former colleagues, our entire church congregation. Rosalie was supposed to help me host it. She was the co-chair of the planning committee. Perfect. The last 3 days of the cruise were the hardest. Watching them try to sneak moments together, watching Mitchell check his phone constantly when he thought I wasn't looking, watching Rosalie make excuses to run into him at the gym, at the library, on the walking deck. I documented everything. Photos with timestamps, screenshots of Mitchell's location when he said he was one place but was actually somewhere else, videos of them together when they thought no one was watching. And I played my part, the devoted wife, the loyal friend, making plans for future cruises, talking about our retirement dreams, laughing at Mitchell's jokes, hugging Rosalie goodbye when we disembarked. On the drive home from the port in Galveston, Mitchell was quiet. Finally, he said, "That was a good trip." "It was," I agreed. "Very enlightening." He glanced at me sharply, but I was looking out the window, my expression neutral. The 2 weeks between the cruise and the party were busy. I confirmed every detail with the caterer, the florist, the rental company. I made sure everything would be perfect. I also made 3 important appointments, one with a divorce attorney, one with a forensic accountant, and one with our daughter, Lauren. I told Lauren everything, showed her all the evidence, watched her face go from disbelief to rage to grief. She cried. I didn't. I was beyond tears. "Mom, we should cancel the party," she said. "No," I replied. "The party is exactly where this needs to happen." She stared at me. "You're going to tell everyone in front of everyone?" "Not tell, show." I'd learned something during 40 years with a trial attorney. Evidence speaks louder than words, and presentation matters. The day before the party, I visited Mitchell's law office. I asked his secretary to make copies of our joint tax returns for the past 3 years. She complied without question. I was his wife, after all. I had every right. Those tax returns told another story. Income Mitchell had never mentioned, consulting fees that went directly to his separate account, money that should have been marital property. The morning of the party, I was calm. I'd hired a videographer, telling Mitchell it was to capture our celebration. I'd created a video presentation, supposedly a montage of our 40 years together. I'd asked to use the venue's large screen and projector. Mitchell thought it was sentimental, sweet. He kissed my cheek that morning and said, "You've always been so thoughtful." I smiled. I try. Guests started arriving at 6. Our children and their families, Mitchell's law partners and their wives, my teacher friends, our church group, and Rosalie, of course. She arrived early to help, wearing a navy dress, her hair perfectly styled. She hugged me tightly. "This is going to be such a special night," she whispered. "Yes," I agreed. "It really is." At 7:30, everyone was there, nearly 100 people. The party was in full swing. That's when I asked for everyone's attention. Thank you all for coming, I said, standing by the screen. Mitchell and I are so grateful to celebrate 40 years of marriage with the people we love most. I've put together a little video. I hope you'll indulge me. Mitchell beamed. Rosalie smiled encouragingly from the front row. I clicked the remote. The video started with our wedding photos, young and happy, then our children being born. Family vacations, holidays, milestones, 40 years in fast forward. Then the music changed. The images changed. There was Mitchell and Rosalie on the cruise ship. The video I'd recorded through the stateroom door. Audio clear. We should tell her soon. After the cruise, I promise. There was Mitchell and Rosalie at a restaurant in Dallas, a photo from a year ago from Rosalie's Facebook that she'd tagged him in before quickly untagging, but I'd saved it. There was the bank statement showing the transfers to their joint account. There was the deed to the Scottsdale condo, Rosalie's name, funded by our home equity line. There was the timeline, 18 months of deception, of stealing, of planning their future with my money. The room was silent, absolutely silent. I let it play to the end. Then I turned on the lights. Mitchell's face was white. Rosalie was crying. Our children looked stunned. Mitchell's law partners looked horrified. My friends looked ready to riot. 40 years, I said, my voice steady. That's how long I've been married to this man. 40 years of partnership, of trust, of building a life together. I paused. It turns out the last 18 months, he was building a different life with my best friend, using marital assets he deliberately hid from me. Mitchell stood up. Ramona, let me explain. Explain what? I cut him off. Explain how you stole $200,000 from our home equity? Explain how you bought your girlfriend a condo with money that should have been for our retirement? Explain how you planned to tell me after the cruise, after you'd enjoyed 10 days of paradise on my dime. I turned to the crowd. I'm filing for divorce on Monday. My attorney has already drafted the papers. Mitchell will be served at his office. I'm suing for full restitution of all marital assets that were misappropriated, plus damages for fraud and conversion. His law partners might be interested to know that some of this money was hidden through false tax reporting, which I've already reported to the IRS. One of the senior partners stood up and left the room immediately, probably to call the firm's ethics board. I looked at Rosalie. She was sobbing now. As for you, I said quietly, I thought you were my friend. I trusted you with everything, my secrets, my fears, my family, and you took the thing most precious to me and tried to make it yours. Ramona, I'm so sorry. It just happened. Nothing just happens. You made choices, both of you, every single day for 18 months. You chose to lie to me. You chose to steal from me. You chose to humiliate me. I turned back to face everyone. But here's what you didn't count on. You thought I'd fall apart. You thought I'd be so devastated, so broken, that I'd just accept whatever scraps you decided to leave me. You forgot something important. I stood taller. I put my husband through law school while working 2 jobs. I raised 3 children. I ran a high school with 2,000 students. I've dealt with angry parents, school boards, and budget crises. I've dealt with tragedies and triumphs. I'm not a delicate flower who wilts at the first sign of trouble. I looked at Mitchell directly. I'm a woman who knows her worth, and I'm done accepting anything less than I deserve. Then I turned to my children. Lauren, Tessa, Garrett, I'm sorry you had to see this, but I need you to know something. I didn't want to humiliate your father. I wanted you to see the truth, because someday you might face your own betrayals, your own moments where someone you love disappoints you. And I want you to remember that you don't have to accept it. You don't have to make yourself smaller to accommodate someone else's bad behavior. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. And you deserve to stand up for yourself. Lauren was crying, but she nodded. She came to stand beside me, putting her arm around my waist. Then Tessa joined us. Then Garrett. My children stood with me. That was all I needed. I looked at the crowd one last time. Thank you for coming tonight. I know this isn't the celebration you expected, but in a way, it is a celebration. It's the beginning of my next chapter, one built on truth instead of lies, one where I choose myself. I handed the microphone to Lauren and walked out of the venue, alone, my head high. Behind me, I could hear chaos erupting, angry voices, Mitchell trying to explain, Rosalie still sobbing, but I didn't look back. I drove home to our house, the house I'd decorated, the garden I'd planted, the life I'd built. I walked through every room, remembering, not with sadness, but with gratitude. This had been my home. These had been my years. They were mine. No one could take that away. Then I went to our bedroom and started packing Mitchell's clothes. He wouldn't be living here anymore. My attorney had already filed for a temporary restraining order to keep him away from marital assets. He'd be staying in a hotel tonight, and for many nights after. By the time I finished, it was nearly midnight. My phone was exploding with texts and calls, my children checking on me, friends offering support, even Mitchell's partners apologizing, saying they had no idea. But one text stood out, from my former colleague, Meredith, who'd been at the party. "Ramona, I've never been more proud to know you. You taught those kids at school about integrity and courage for 30 years. Tonight, you taught all of us. Thank you." I sat down on my bed and finally let myself cry. Not from sadness, not from betrayal, from relief. Because I'd done it. I'd stood up for myself. I'd refused to be the victim in my own story. The divorce took 6 months. Mitchell tried to negotiate, tried to claim he'd been confused, going through a midlife crisis, that he still loved me, but the evidence was overwhelming. The forensic accountant found even more hidden assets. In the end, I got the house, 70% of our retirement funds, full restitution for the stolen money, and spousal support for the rest of my life. Rosalie moved to Scottsdale alone. Mitchell couldn't afford to follow her once the divorce settlement was finalized. Last I heard, they'd broken up. Apparently, the affair wasn't as exciting without the secrecy and without my money funding it. Mitchell lost his partnership at the firm, not because of the affair, but because of the financial impropriety and tax issues. He's working as a contract attorney now, making a fraction of what he used to make. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled it, if I wish I'd confronted them privately instead of publicly, if I think the public humiliation was too much. My answer is always the same. They humiliated me every day for 18 months, every time they met in secret, every time they stole from our joint accounts, every time they made plans for their future using my money and my trust. They just didn't think I'd ever find out. I didn't humiliate them. I simply brought the truth into the light. Today, I'm 63 years old. I have a beautiful condo downtown with a view of the city. I volunteer at a women's shelter, helping other women navigate divorce and financial abuse. I travel with my daughters. I'm learning to paint. I'm dating, though nothing serious yet. Maybe someday, maybe not. Either way, I'm happy. Last week, I ran into an old friend at the grocery store. She asked how I was doing, her voice full of pity. "I'm doing wonderfully," I said, and I meant it. She looked surprised. "But after everything you went through?" "After everything I went through," I interrupted gently, "I learned something important. I learned that I'm stronger than I ever imagined. I learned that I don't need anyone to complete me. I learned that the people who truly love you will stand by you, and the ones who don't aren't worth your tears. But aren't you angry? She pressed. I thought about it. Not anymore. Anger was useful for a while. It kept me strong when I needed to be. But now, I smiled. Now I'm just grateful. Grateful I found out when I did. Grateful I had the courage to act. Grateful for this second chance at life. Because that's what it is, a second chance. At 63, I thought my life was winding down. Instead, it's opening up in ways I never imagined. Sometimes at night, I sit on my balcony and look at the stars. And I think about that moment on the cruise ship, standing outside that stateroom door, hearing my husband laugh with my best friend. How easily I could have just walked away, could have pretended I didn't hear, could have spent the rest of my life being the understanding wife, the good friend, the woman who made everyone else's betrayal easier to bear. But I didn't. I chose myself. I chose truth. I chose dignity. And that, more than anything else, is worth celebrating. 40 years of marriage ended, but 63 years of being Ramona? That's just getting started.